even if you're faking the frozen sea, it's a brave man who goes to Scotland in the winter. Was the weather your friend during the production?
Flirtatious friend, yes. It was like the weather knew it was in a movie and was showing us everything it could do. You know, how about this? What about this? We could give you a gale. Here's a snowstorm just when you don't want it, but here's some wind when you do. And no, we had to be on our toes. It's, you know, the film takes place across 4 hours, and the time scale of the events in the film. And we're filming in Scotland in November and December, and it's dark at 3:30. 2/3 of the film is outside, and it's not light enough to shoot until 9, so, you know, very short days. And also you have a frozen sea, so you have to study the tide times to make sure that the tide is out, because otherwise all you can hear is whoosh whoosh across the soundtrack. So there's been quite a lot of work in the looping room, because you're waiting for a cloud to come over the sun. It takes all day to get there, and then the water's crashing around the DP's ankles. So
I bought every piece of clothing I owned to Scotland, and a few more besides, and then ended up sweltering in the most magnificent sunshine, which virtually halted the production. How flexible as a first-time film director did you have to be to, you know, there was nothing you could do that day except film Sheila and getting on the bus, I think.
Some days were more difficult than others, it's true. A couple of days you had to kind of take your heart in your mouth and say, right, we're moving and we're going to go and shoot inside, because you just thought, well, this is not going to change. And it's a difficult thing to do, because it takes 2 or 3 hours to do that, to stop shooting on location and get everybody to the studio that we had built inside a grain store in Cooper, but it was 12 miles away, and you've got to get up and running to get inside. I mean, I was blessed with a fantastic cast and crew for a start, so that you knew that you could shoot any scene any day. And I always said to them that that's what would be necessary, so they'd all have to be ready to do anything. And some days you really couldn't move, so you just had to work out how you could flag the sunshine off. Okay, when you're in a bus stop or in a circle of rocks, but hopeless on a big, wide expanse of beach or street or anything like that.
It strikes me, without knowing too much about either role, that directing something for the theatre and directing something for the movies, entirely different jobs, really, aren't they? What did you? Were you prepared for all that was thrown at you in the making of the film of The Winter Guest? Was the role as you imagined?
Well, I suppose because I'm an actor, and because I've been in some movies, you kind of know to some extent what the job entails, but I don't think anything can prepare you for the 24 hours a day-ness of it, and the number of questions and the instant decisions. But I think when you have a piece of writing that you trust, the decisions take care of themselves largely. You know, you've got an inbuilt monitor that says yes, no, here, there, bigger, smaller, whatever. And I spent long enough in pre-production and with the people that were going to be crucial, who I think often don't get involved in as much pre-production, so that the actors had walked that landscape a lot and had rehearsed on it. So that Seamus McGarvey and I, the DP, had spent a lot of time out there just talking about scenes. Pat Rambo, the script supervisor, Joan Berg, and the costume designer, they'd all been very involved in the putting together of it. It wasn't just a kind of cosmetic exercise at the last minute, well, here's a costume. And everything, I hope, grew organically. And if that's the link with theatre, then it's a proper one, because that's the only way I think you can make a piece of theatre.
It must help that so many of the actors sort of came to that with a sort of absolutely dyed-in-the-brain knowledge of their characters.
Well, with Sandra Vo and Sheila Reid, of course, crucial, especially because Sandra was shooting a TV series, and it meant that I had to do all of their material in a week. Well, you know, you couldn't do it unless they came up knowing who they were, put the clothes on, and just did it, you know, basically. So the schedule had to be arranged around my assurances that they would get through a lot of material quickly, and they did. And the boys, Sean Biggerstaff and Douglas Murphy, incredibly prepared. You know, by the time we started shooting, they'd done 2 weeks of rehearsals. They knew each other's lines backwards. So it meant that you had a fit team, and that really was the only way that you could do it.
And then, of course, you have to incorporate the star tantrums of Ms. Law and Miss Thompson. Sharing a trailer, I think.
Yes, well, I mean, there were no tantrums, of course, because neither of them operate in that way. No, it was a great luxury working with a mother and daughter, playing a mother and daughter.
I think they enjoyed that. I think they, from what Philida and Emma were saying at the time, I think they were sort of, in a way, sort of learning things about each other in a way through the part, that it was an interesting experience for them.
I'm sure that's true, and some of it I left unexplored and untalked about because they kind of gave me that clue. You know, we'd be on a scene and they'd say, this is all a bit close to the bone here, and you'd think, right, I'll go away and look for you through a viewfinder or something, because you don't need to interfere with that sort of thing. And I think their physical ease together in the film speaks volumes, and also their generosity with each other and all of the other actors, and as I said, the lack of any kind of temperament, just a job of work, and the knowledge that although they are mother and daughter, and they're playing mother and daughter, they are not that mother and daughter. So there is some distance.
What, essentially, for you, is The Winter Guest about? What's the sort of core of the play and the film, and indeed, are they the same thing?
Well, I hope, ultimately, that what it's about is what any member of the audience tells you it's about when they leave. It's no accident that it has every generation represented in it. It's no accident, I suppose, now that it's a film that is being shown towards the end of a millennium, that some of the final images are of the youngest members of the cast walking out into what? A world that the older members of the story have made for them, or we've made for them, or is daily being made for the youngest people in society, which starts to make it sound all very po-faced, and it's not. I mean, I hope it's riddled with humanity as well, and humour,